It's a pleasure to welcome you to the afternoon session of this exciting conference, and I think that it's a terrific subject that we have for this panel, the subject of film diplomacy. Film is a notoriously powerful medium, and some of the problems we have are problems that come from the ability of film to create a impression of the world, a reality on the screen that sells people ideas of how the world ought to be that we wouldn't understand as being negative and part of the problem that we're trying to change in our work. Problems of sexism and patriarchy are all over the visual media, and film is no exception. However, it's wonderful to see how film can be used as a corrective and as an agent of change. And we have in this panel three people who are located in the midst of that work. At the far end of the table is Audrey Emerson, who's a documentary filmmaker and a student here at USC studying in the cinema school. Her first documentary was called the Pamoja Project, which is a film dealing with women in Tanzania. Then next to Audrey, we have Dina Nasser, who is the artistic director of the Arab Film Festival, which has been a really successful part of LA's cultural life and is now in its 20th year as the largest international film festival based around Arab film outside of the Middle East. So, many congratulations on 20 years. And then on my immediate right-hand side is Yasmin Yilmaz, who's the co-founder of the Los Angeles Turkish Film Festival, and she's currently pursuing her MFA in screenwriting at USC. And so I think it's a great opportunity to address these subjects and welcome, and I look forward to what you have to say into the discussion afterwards. Thank you very much for being here.
My name is Audrey Emerson. I am the director and the producer of a documentary film called the Pamoja Project. And this was my first big project. I'm a film student here at SC. And I really wanted to do something with an organization called Unite the World with Africa. And it's a nonprofit foundation that I've been working with since I was in middle school. And they focus on identifying and supporting Tanzanian leadership. And it's really about, I really felt that I stood behind what the organization valued, which was identifying the leadership that's already working and already in place in Tanzania, and then giving them the necessities and the things that they needed to really make a difference and really go bring whatever their work is to the next level. So it started out, the history of the film that I have just completed started out very small. I was just going to go to Tanzania. I'd been talking about it for a while, and I thought, well, it'd be great to capture some really great footage and put a film together. And slowly by slowly, it got much, much larger, and the Pamoja Project was born. And the film itself focuses on three women in Tanzania: Astrida, Sister Crispina, and Margaret. And they're all working in different parts of Tanzania in different sectors, doing different things, but they all are really, really devoted to changing the lives of people in their communities. And they all do different, that's all different, what that means to them is different. But I really wanted to make a film that showcased the work that they're doing in a non-commentary type way. So it was really just about going over there, creating a genuine connection to these women, and trying to capture what the work is that they're doing and create a human connection to them in the film. So I think, anyway, and I brought a little clip, but I'll share that later. But the two things that in my experience have made this film really special is the partnerships we've created and the approach to storytelling that we took. So from the very beginning, we partnered with Unite the World with Africa Foundation to have access to these women, to talk to them, to make sure that our trip went smoothly over there. And from the beginning, it was a nonprofit project. So any funds raised from the film will go directly to the foundation. However, given that it is a nonprofit film and that we were doing it as low budget as possible, we didn't intend to try to make money from the film. It was really just to get as many people to see it as possible, and that's still our goal now that we've just finished it. That's what we're trying to figure out now. But given that that was our goal, we wanted to tell a story that not a lot of people have seen because we wanted to give it as wide of an audience as possible. And the reality is that a lot of the media that's out there about Africa is very stereotypical and it's very negative. It's a lot of poverty. There's a term that's thrown around called poverty porn, and it's where you take these really sad images and throw it up on a screen, and it's exploitive, and it's there's a lot to be said about it. But my whole thing was I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make a story and tell a story about 3 women who were doing incredible things, and 3 women that were leading Tanzania into a totally new space and a totally new area, and they're all women, and they're all, they've all overcome incredible obstacles in order to be able to give back to their communities in the way that they're doing now. So Unite the World with Africa was the access point into that, and their partnership was invaluable throughout the whole process. And then the second organization we partnered with was the USC Media Institute for Social Change, which is run out of the cinema school. And Michael Taylor is the founder and director of the Media Institute for Social Change, and he was amazing from the beginning. He has a lot of experience in filmmaking, but also has a lot of experience in telling stories that are meant to inspire and that are meant to create change and be a tool for change. And so with that partnership, we've been able to kind of tell the story that we need to tell, but also have access to that world that is currently and very newly evolving, which is media for social change and film diplomacy. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said there's a new term in the film world called, well, it's not new, but it's becoming more and more prevalent, called impact producing. And it's where you have a producer on your project that's purely there to help produce a film that has an impact. So it's a very interesting kind of new sector that's evolving because the power of media, as we all know, is so strong. So that's what we did from the beginning, was create these very strategic partnerships to bring us to a new stage. And then the second thing was our approach to storytelling. And like I mentioned, we really wanted to stay positive. We wanted to give an anti-narrative that wasn't about poverty, that wasn't about the stuff that's going wrong, but we wanted to show women doing what they do best that are changing the face of Tanzania. And that's all because there's a lot of research out there that shows that when you show somebody something that's positive and something that's happening, they're 100 times more willing to invest in that, right? If you see poverty and they're asking you to give money, it's not as straight as a line as when you see somebody who's making a difference and then they ask you to give money. That makes a lot more sense. So that was our approach to storytelling, and that was kind of from the beginning what we've tried to do, and create a really humanistic narrative that that created a real connection between what you're seeing on screen with somebody who has a life that you can't imagine, and still is just like you. I mean, one of my favorite moments with Estrida, who I'll show you a clip of right now. I was talking to her about something really serious. She takes in kids. She's an educator. She's a teacher, and she's worked hundreds and hundreds of jobs in education in all different types, and she really knows the education system in Tanzania inside and out, from the government schools to the public schools, back and forth. So I was talking to her about something serious about education, and she mentions, well, she said, that's why I have the kids come in and stay with me, because it's not safe for them to walk to school and whatever. And she goes, but they cannot watch TV until they've done their homework. And I was like, oh yeah, that was the same in my house growing up. And it was one of those moments that you never think we were filming, and you never think that those are going to be the moments that make your film what it is. But they do, because it's that connection that we really wanted to create in this story. So I want to show you a little clip of Estrida from our time in Tanzania, and enjoy.
I love kids. It's a passion. I just want to have people around me, young ones. If I happen to get somebody who is in need, I take him or her on. It has been like that for years. There's a time I had 14 people in the house. Yes, I had 3 girls and 1 boy from my school at Ranikoba, and some dependents from my husband's side, plus my 6 children, and I'm happy. Now, you see, this is my ex-student. I know Pili. She has a baby. We got her. She had already she left school because she had a baby in primary school. So we came to her. We took her in. It was a lot of counseling from motherhood, and she didn't know who to leave the baby with to come to school. We are helping her out. Your son is now in Lena. What is your baby? In which school?
Anasoma area 5.
Area 5. Darasa ngapi?
Wapi?
The baby is now in standard 2 in the primary school. It's a big boy. That's my passion. I enjoy it. I feel satisfied. I like to see them move from one stage to another. And then I say, yes, at least I helped one person to have a better life.
Hi everyone, my name is Dina Nassar, and I'm so happy to be on this panel talking about women in public diplomacy. I'm going to share with you guys a story that happened to me not so recent, pretty recently actually. And I think, and when this happened to me, it reinforced something that I had already been feeling kind of growing up as an American Muslim Arab woman, that everybody kind of has this opinion of how I'm supposed to be in the world. Whether it doesn't matter if they're, an Arab man, Arab woman, non-Muslim, Muslim person. I used to get a lot of, and still do get a lot of comments like, oh, so you're Muslim, but you're not, and then they'd fill it in with whatever that, whatever their assumption was about me. Oh, so you're Arab, but you're fairly, does your family drive? Do your aunts drive? And like there was always some sort of like, but you're totally blowing my, my preconceived notions of you. Like I don't know what to do with you. So I'm going to share with you something that happened to me that kind of was the peak of that. Along with working with the Arab Film Festival, I also work with the Muslim Public Affairs Council, which is a policy advocacy group, and I'm an actress. So I had gotten signed, so this is me now with my actress hat on. I was signed to an agent who was a fairly junior agent. And she didn't really know what to do with me. But she told me, I need you to go get new headshots. I said, okay. She said, I'm going to send you to my girl. She lives in the Valley. She's great. She's going to know exactly what to do. So I was like, okay, great. What do you need from me when I get there? She said, well, I'm going to need you to take commercial shots, theatrical shots, and that's pretty standard. And then she added, I'm going to need you to take ethnic shots. And I didn't know what that was. I was really intrigued. But I was like, I'm going to figure it out when I get there. So to prepare to take ethnic shots, I just grabbed really bright colored stuff. I know that again, my own internalized stereotypes. I grabbed like just some clothes that I never wear, and I took it to the studio. And I get there, and this really nice woman is there, and she's so excited, and she's like, okay, get ready, get prepared. We did the commercial shots, and I sat there and I posed, and we did the theatrical shots, and then she said, the agent, she wants you to do ethnic shots too. I said, yeah, what is that? What is that? She's like, okay, yeah, so don't worry about it. I'll get you ready for the ethnic shots. So I'm sitting there, and my hair is pretty much like it is now, but it's straight. It's like bone straight. She takes a pick and she parts my hair right in the middle, and she flattens my hair. And then she tells me to put eyeliner on over my eyes. So, okay, this is interesting. And then she tells me to put on, like I kind of suspected she would, this like bright turquoise, like Sherwad Kameez kind of looking shirt. So I was like, okay, this is gonna be interesting. What am I signing up for? And she's taking test shots, and I'm just posing and doing my thing, and then she says, okay, now give me immigrant. And I looked at her, I was like, and my mind is racing. I'm like, what am I doing? What am I participating in? But then I look at her and I go, I didn't know what to do. And she goes, no, honey, immigrant. I'm like, what is this? Like, what? I was like, well, I'm not gonna do that. So I'm just gonna do what I think you want me to do. And she's like, okay, that's fine. And so we get through that, and then her next thing was like, okay, now think, you know, Law and Order, or some like crime show, and you are the submissive, abused wife, and you're coming in to, you know, finally take a stand against your terrorist or abusive husband. Pick one, your choice. And this is like, I'm like, okay, where are the hidden cameras? This is crazy. And I just am stunned. And she took what she, you know, she just kept shooting, and then she notices I'm uncomfortable, and she says to me, you know, honey, I know, this is the worst part of my job. I hate this kind of thing, but this is what we gotta do, right? And I just let it slide. And then the final thing she says to me, I'm not exaggerating this. She says, okay, now I'm an American and you hate me. You want to kill me. And at that moment, I kind of think I don't have to go very, it's not that much of a stretch right now because I'm that angry. Like, what is going on? But, you know, the shots were unusable. They were totally unusable. I looked ridiculous and confused. And my relationship with the agent didn't last very much for very long after that, because I knew that fundamentally we did not agree on what my role would be, what I would be doing, what my career would look like. So we parted ways. But what it did for me is it reinforced how simplistic people's images are of Arab and Muslim women. To be reduced to a dopey immigrant, an abused woman, or a female jihadi woman who's like hates Americans, that was just beyond me. Now I'm gonna back up and tell you what I do. I mentioned I work with the Arab Film Festival. And with the Arab Film Festival, that's a relatively new role. I've been working with them for a little over a year as an artistic director and head of programming. So I, you know, accept submissions from all around the world, review them, and then program the film festival. My other hat is I'm a consultant with the Muslim Public Affairs Council. Now, as my role at the Muslim Public Affairs Council as a Hollywood liaison, I build relationships with people in Hollywood, help consult on scripts, help get actors in front of the camera, Muslim screenwriters in the writing room, that sort of thing. And that was really what was the voice in my head. Like when I was taking these shots, I was like, everything I've been working for, this is just going down the drain in this like 15 minutes of like this 15-minute photo shoot. it was really disorienting, and I had to kind of take a step back and really reflect. And I've been thinking about this whole idea of, like, you know, W.E.B. Du Bois talked about this idea of double consciousness in the African American community, and how you kind of have to be, you have to have these dual identities. And I think it applies to communities of color in general in a lot of ways. And that's kind of like what my career has been. It's been this double consciousness of tackling how Americans and Westerners view American Muslims, Muslims overseas, Arabs, South Asians, Middle Easterners. And on the flip side, also highlighting stories out of the Arab world that challenge notions of what a woman is, what her role is, you know, what the religion teaches in general about how to be in society. And those are the two hats I wear. I'm really happy to say that with the Arab Film Festival, you know, we're able to program films that really have an impact. We showed, I'll give you a couple of examples. We showed a film last year called Omnia, and it's a story of a young girl who recounts her experience in Egypt she had experienced genital cutting as a young girl. And so she's talking now as a young adult about how that shaped her. And you know, that practice has been outlawed in Egypt. It was outlawed in 1980. But yet it's still something that is not, it's not completely banished from the society. There's still pockets where that still happens. But I am confident that filmmaking is the way to reach people and convince them not to do that kind of stuff. I don't, like, you know, the law was passed almost 30 years ago, and it hasn't seemed to really make an impact. I was talking earlier with the representative from the Egyptian consulate, and her and I were talking about how one film in Egypt that was done by the legendary Fatin Hamama, who passed away last year. She was married to Omar Sharif. One film about women's divorce, like their inability to get divorces in Egypt, actually totally revolutionized Egyptian society and changed the divorce laws in Egypt so that women can now ask for and get divorces. Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy just won the Oscar for her film A Girl in the River, about honor killings in Pakistan. This film is now the catalyst for changing laws to prevent honor killings in Pakistan. There is nothing more powerful than the images that we put on screen. And that's why it's so problematic when they're reductive and they're so simplistic and one-sided. So my whole career, I think it is about adding the layers and adding the nuance and adding the complexity, because nobody wants to be seen as a cardboard cutout of something. And it's not, that kind of understanding of one another is not helpful. It's not helpful to me, it's not helpful to you. It's not helpful for us to deal with one another in that way, that you are just what I have been told by television you are, or by my history books that you are. We're so much more than that. And the beauty of art and film is that it's the strongest, most powerful tool to add those kinds of complexities and nuances. I will leave it there for now.
Yasmin.
Yes, hi. My name is Yasmin Yilmaz. I am one of the co-founders of the Los Angeles Turkish Film Festival. We're still fairly new, only in our 4th year. We just finished our 4th festival in March. So I would say that my experience is a little bit more limited, I think, in terms of the festival. But I would like to give a couple of statistics about, just a couple of numbers to give you an idea of how women filmmakers are represented within our festival. Every year we get about 350 short film submissions to our short film competition. These are mainly from young up-and-coming Turkish filmmakers. And they, from those 350, I would say about 60 to 70 of them are women directors' submissions. Now from that, we select 10 to screen here each year. And of that 10, about 2 of them come from women filmmakers, and usually one of them is an animation. What these films have in common, mainly, is that these stories are fantastic films that just happen to be told by women. It's not that, unlike the other 60 to 70 films that are submitted to us, we find that generally they fall into 2 categories, and I'm really sorry to have to just parse it down to this, but it is the challenge of being, I think, a woman filmmaker. They either tend to perpetuate the stereotypes that we've seen on film for decades, or they become hyper-reactionary and very feminist, and rather than telling a good story, focus on giving a message and become didactic. Now, these women, I'll tell you, of the 350 films, not one of those films made by a woman is less than perfect. When it comes to lighting, camera work, acting, these filmmakers know how to put film together. But they're trying to tell a story that is socially relevant, but really forget the story part of it. Putting that aside, that's the challenges that I've seen at the festival. And I feel like I can talk about that and kind of say that, okay, because I'm also guilty of the same thing. I am a graduate student in the screenwriting department here at USC. I've been writing screenplays for 2 years, and of the 10 screenplays that I've written, I've noticed that only 3 of them have female hero protagonists, which is kind of sad, really. And what I've noticed is that either I'm a 40-year-old white man at heart, I don't know, or I've seen them enough to know what it's like to write for a male character, which is also sad. But I'm not the only one guilty of this. Of my cohort, 15 of the 30, 15 are women, and I can safely say that at least half of them struggle with the same thing. So being on the creative side, and as a writer, I struggle with the same thing that I'm saying that these women who submit their films to our festival are guilty of. Now, I came to this realization a bit late in the program. I'm about to graduate in May, so it would have been nice to know this early on so that I could have met those challenges earlier, but it's not too late. My friends and I have actually started this new initiative, and I'm hoping it'll take effect more. We've questioned why we can't tell women's stories the way they should be told. What is so difficult about telling a story that features a female character that isn't a stereotypical, the same as you were talking about the Arab Muslim women, of being either the submissive wife of a terrorist abused domestically, or fulfilling just mother and sisterly roles. And besides the stereotype, why we can't create strong women who don't have to be like men. I don't know if many of you, I'm hoping, would agree with me when I say that when you look at TV shows today or films, if they have women protagonists, a lot of them generally just happen to be women. They are clever and glib the same way a man would be. They have the same strengths and weaknesses that men would have. So what makes them different? What makes them who they are? So part of our initiative, we've decided to go back to the source. Where do stories come from? Stories come from real people. And we're looking to talk to the real women in our lives, whether they be women who are our mothers, sisters, Uber drivers, whoever they are, talking to them about their just daily lives. Nothing, it doesn't have to be anything major the way that we see in the drama on screen, but small things like, what do you do when your kids are late to dinner? If your Uber driver is, I don't know why I keep coming back to the Uber, but if your Uber driver is late taking you somewhere, how do you react differently than a man would react? And I think there are certain nuances that tell us that women's strengths and weaknesses are different than men's. And being able to reflect that onto the screen, taking stories from real lives and putting that on the screen, I think that'll hopefully make a difference. That's it.
So to get discussion going, I'd like you all to think about what we can do as an audience to help you in your work. How can this be a collective? Because each of you is sort of soldiering on in your own element, but what can we do as an audience? How can we push back around? Because you're all describing aspects of the same set of issues, same set of problems, but you know, we are consumers of what you do. What can we do?
That's a great question. I think, sorry, I didn't mean to kick it off. I think I think there's a lot of things. I mean, for me as a filmmaker, when I talk about media and consuming media, I think the first thing is to be aware of the things that are being put in front of you and being aware of where they come from, who's behind them, what the potential agendas are, and to start asking questions. And I know that's very high level, and I'm a very tangible person, so I like, you know, tell me exactly what I need to do to do something. And I think what I've learned from making this film and from the women in this film is that it starts with one thing. You know, choose one thing, one organization you're passionate about, one, you know, stop showering for 20 minutes, shower for 10 minutes. I mean, anything that you care about, that's what makes a difference. And I know specifically with women, I think media and consuming is you really just have to start questioning and fighting back about certain things that come in front of your face. And I think that now with social media and the platforms we have access to, we all have a voice, a very, very loud and active voice, and there's a lot of voices to sort through on you know, Facebook and whatever. But I think it really just starts with a conscious shift in how you perceive and receive information, and to question it. And I know that's not tangible, but I think that's where it starts.
Yeah, I don't know that I can add. That's a perfect answer. I think, yeah, engagement. Just engage your media, engage the information that is being presented to you. Don't just take it at face value, and also support the things that you believe need to be supported, the art and the culture that you believe need to be supported. You know, attend our festivals. You know, that's something that
what are you waiting for? A personal invitation?
Yeah.
You've got it.
Yeah, exactly. That's all I would add.
They've said it all. I think just see me afterwards and I'll jot down your stories and hopefully they'll make it into something. I don't know. I think everyone in here is obviously interested in the subject matter, and right now we all have the ability to engage. As they say, you can come out and tell your own stories, and that's a much bigger option, I think. I mean, I go on Hulu and I see a bunch of comments of people talking about how, you know, in this show, whatever comment, like it just, this character didn't spark interest, or it's, in fact, yesterday I was looking at should I name the show? I don't know. Yeah. Okay, Crowded, which I've seen the posters everywhere, and I thought, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And before I'd even gotten through 10 minutes, the commercial breaks are perfect for scrolling down and looking at commentary, and a lot of people had gotten to the point that, hey, the two sister characters in this show are very similar to ones that we've seen before in various other shows. The nerdy sister versus the very hot sister. Yeah. And
I haven't even seen the show, and I knew what it was.
Yeah. It took me a little while, yeah. But yeah, so people are talking like that, and I still say, come out, tell your own stories.
That's a great way of putting it. Can we have some questions from the... Yes, please.
When you how do you engage as a filmmaker, and say, for instance, you want to go to Egypt and you want to do a story that's going to revolutionize the lives of women, and yet not take it on so directly that you're getting over. But you mentioned the story about, you know, General Cutting. I mean, obviously that's going to take a brilliant script to get any kind of backing. But that being done, how do you garner the support of the Egyptian community and actually get boots on the ground like you did in Africa? So I guess it's kind of a question for all of you.
I think you have the most direct experience with that.
For me, I mean, my experience is a little different because we were taking we were taking 3 subjects in particular, and then the issues that came out through them is what we captured. And really, I mean, it's about going in with no commentary. It's about not going in with an agenda that's so specific and so, you know, rigid that there's no room for the nuances and the layers and the complexity. And I think, you know, for me for a documentary, and I think documentary and narrative, you know, and scripted are similar, right? They're both about telling a story that matters, or that's you know, has an arc and that moves people. And you know, I think building relationships from the beginning and spending time with people before you even bring cameras into it at all, that's always going to be really important. But you know, I really think it's about saying, I'm just going to listen more than I talk, and I'm really going to listen and not just pretend to listen. But if they say something that I don't expect, I'm not going to shut it off. I'm not going to shut down. And I think, you know, I think it starts with that. But it's difficult. It's certainly not easy.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the other thing I would add is that, you know, we have this tendency to, you know, the way we negotiate our Western privilege sometimes, like as well-meaning, as well-intentioned as we might be, sometimes the way it actually ends up playing out when you're trying to do this really well-meaning thing, it gets funky, it gets weird. So I would say if there's a story you want to tell about a certain community or a certain issue, it's really important, and you touched on this with the listening, but even like more than even that, like I would take it a step further and say, like, you have to become a student to the people that you are, you know, trying to highlight. You have to like learn from them, and not have this kind of like power. Like, you have to shift the power dynamic. So it's not like, hey, I'm coming to save you and tell your story, and the whole world is then going to feel sympathy for you and then give money to you. That's the sort of paradigm that we're accustomed to, and I very much admire the fact that you are completely breaking that, because it just perpetuates the problems, right? And so if we're trying to really break the problem, you have to engage the people from a place of like, I have certain strengths, but you also have a lot of strengths, and I want to learn what those are. Because I want to enhance my life through this experience as much as I want to uplift you. It's just the intention. That's the difference.
Would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. I'm Gina Presson, and I'm an Annenberg Fellow doing a Master's in Specialized Journalism and studying investigative reporting and documentary production. And I have worked for APDS and other things, but my question for you is really a technical one. I'm wondering how long were you in the country to get enough footage to do that piece?
Not long enough. Yeah, no, not long enough is the answer. We were there for 3 weeks, and if it was my way, we could have been there for 6 months. But we were making a short, so it's a 20-minute film, and we were there for 3 weeks every day. We shot, hours and hours of footage, and that's kind of that's always the thing with documentary is how much do you need, how much do you want, and then at the end of the day, you make what you can out of what you have. But yeah, it was 3 weeks, and then 6 months of pre-production prep. But really, we were only on the ground for 3 weeks there. But because we were partnered with that Unite the World with Africa Foundation, we were able to communicate and do a lot of prep work beforehand without actually being in Tanzania.
Great piece. Thank you all for sharing your great thoughts.
Yeah.
Another question? Yes, right there at the back.
My name is Stephanie. I'm a social nursing, currently a senior. So as filmmakers and diplomats, I know you guys have like so many events to attend, and you guys are worried about having like the right film and how to like produce it right. So my question is, how do you manage to overcome work environments such as influencing the film with the right message to the viewers?
I'm trying to understand. So you're asking like how do we get our work done without outside influences? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Time buying technique. Okay. It's hard. But I think the idea here is that no matter what message you go into either the making of a film or putting together of an event, the thing that people take away is going to be very different. It's very difficult to control a large group of people, telling them, hey, this is what I'm trying to tell you, make sure that's what you get before you're out the door. And I don't think that the endeavor, especially of filmmaking, should be about necessarily giving a message. In fact, I think the most beautiful story that you just told, like you might tell in your film, you might touch on a million different things, but the story that you told of the fact that the kids aren't allowed to watch TV before they finish their homework, that bond, I already know that if I had seen the whole thing, that would be what I take away from it. I think mainly for us, it's about finding the touchstones that create a common foundation for everyone. So whatever your experience is, you're going to take away the thing that's most similar, the thing that touches you the most. And as filmmakers, the only thing we can hope to do is put together an elaborate experience that allows you to find that one thing. That's a horrible way to answer it, but it's the best I can do.
So this is a challenge. And for me, my thing is, my rule kind of to myself, and it's when I know when I have to, if I'm violating this rule, this is when I know I have to actually speak up and push back. The art is paramount. The quality of the work is on the top. I don't care what else is being said. If it's not good, if it's not moving, if it's not doing the right things, then it's not in the program. I have nothing to do with it. Second, it's about balancing. I think because of this double consciousness kind of thing that I talked about earlier, for me, I'm very sensitive to, having, all the movies, like you mentioned, talking about women being oppressed, or all the movies talking about women fighting against, or with their feminist agenda or whatever. Like, there has to be a well-roundedness and a balance, because I don't want anybody ever walking away saying that oh, you were pigeonholing these people, you're making them just this. I mean, we had a movie last year in our program called The Sea is Behind, and it's this kind of raunchy movie about this Moroccan man who, for a living, he is a wedding dancer. So he's totally poor, he's a wedding dancer, which means he dresses as a woman and belly dances in the street during weddings. And this is something, an old tradition in Morocco. It's fascinating, it's important, it's an important, visually important piece to have. People were not happy with it, they didn't like it, because they were, not because of the gender issues or they thought there was too much graphic stuff in the film. But to me, I was like, well, but did you go in thinking that this is what you were going to see about Morocco? Did you walk in thinking that this is what Morocco looks like? No. So that was an important piece to add to the 60 films that were in there to show you just a different side, you know? Because no, we're not, like, we're all on the hook if we believe that a certain place is just one way. You know, we have to transcend that at this point. It's 2016. We have to get to a point where we realize that places are complicated and they're deep and they have history and they have richness to them, you know? And so it's my job to bring that.
Yes, ma'am? You have, are you?
No, I think
okay.
that was a great answer.
Anna, over by the window, you had a question.
Yeah, I have a question. Yasmin talked about looking at comments, and I think this is an interesting, because the way that you disseminate art these days is so, it's no longer, right, come to my art gallery or come to my film festival, right, there's this digital component, social media, and so I'm interested in how you create safe spaces for people to tell their stories, because I think that as women, especially in online spaces, and people of color, right, they have these issues where it's like, am I going to be safe here? Am I going to be attacked, right, for sort of telling my story? So I'm wondering how you in your work try and create those safe spaces, if you've come across any issues with safety, of people feeling violence, whether it's physical or emotional, and how you've done that.
I haven't personally had too much experience with that, but what I can say is you have to have a small community of people around you who support your work, but who will always be honest with you about your approaches, because, as I've said before, I'm not above falling back to the stereotypes. It's something that we've seen for so long. I mean, for 20-odd years, I've been watching films and I know that men are portrayed this way, women are portrayed that way, and it's very hard to break out of it. But you're right, it's 2016 and there is more of a conversation going on. So I think it's important to have a small group of people who will tell you honestly what'll help. And you have to realize that a lot of what goes on outside is just noise. People, now that everyone's given the right to speak, everyone feels the need to speak, especially since you don't feel like you're being heard by the people close to you, so you feel that I'll put something out there and see how anyone responds to it. I still go on Facebook and see how many likes I get. I'm one of those people, I'll admit to it, but I think that creatively it's very easy to be, to feel insecure and feel the need for validation, but as I posted recently, validation is junk food. So it's best to kind of stay away from that. And sometimes, if you need to create, you need to turn off all that noise outside and ignore what people have to say. Otherwise, there's no way you, as an artist, can have your voice heard by anyone. So.
Very good. Just to round off, can we go to Bob Banks? You had a question.
Yeah, I was wondering if the two filmmakers have any role models.
Yes, I have lots. I think I'm lucky to have an incredible mentor at the School of Cinematic Arts, Lisa Lehman. She's a documentary filmmaker, incredible filmmaker, but also an incredible teacher and mentor to me. Michael Taylor at the USC Media Institute for Social Change. My aunt is a production accountant for TV, and she was the one that introduced me to film in the first place. And I've always kind of stood by her wisdom and kept on to those little bits of information. And it's everybody in the film world has to, especially women, we have to bring each other up. And I think it's a really you have to find the people that are willing to fight for you and that are willing to kind of stand behind you no matter what. And for me, that's a lot of my professors at the School of Cinematic Arts, but you know, and also
good vote of confidence. So.
I would say similarly, actually. They're the ones, my professors at SCA have pushed me to speak more the voice that I've experienced. They've kept me away from the 40-year-old white man stories as much as possible because they know that my experience is different, and they have tried to nurture that. More professionally, I think anyone who tells a great story, two people that I can think of, Anne-Marie Jashir, she's a Palestinian filmmaker. I think her voice is an incredible asset to Palestine. And also Giuseppe Tornatore, he tells more magical realist type stories, and I think it's just interesting to explore stories that don't necessarily take place in a world that's like ours, but close enough that the human element is just on the surface.
Well, that was a terrific panel. Thank you so much for everything you had to say. It's just wonderful.